be more than human.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Joseph Carroll. I write under the pen name J.R. Carroll, and today is a video that I've wanted to do for a really long time. Um, I'm a huge cinephile, movie buff, whatever you want to call it, but um, I just, when it comes to lists, I really overthink it. And so I've been kind of sitting on this list for a really long time. But today we're going to do my top 10 favorite comic book movies of all time. Um, and just wanted to kind of lay a little bit of ground rules here for these movies. I'm only picking one movie in a series. So um, I'll say whatever the series is, and then I'll pick the movie within the series that I thought was the best. Because there's a few movies that we could kind of put multiples, maybe even three movies in this top 10. And yeah, we don't want to do that. So, um, and if you've ever watched me and my friend Nathan do live, we'll always talk about this, and he'll talk about my lists and how after I'm done with making a list, and like I'll make a video, I'm gonna go back and be like, man, that should have been on the list. So this is as definitive as I can make it, and then I'll have second thoughts and be all mad that I didn't add something to the list. But um, I have two honorable mentions on this list before we get into the meat of it. Um, the first honorable mention would be um, X Men First Class. That movie was, all time. I love X Men. I love the X Men movies. I've seen every single one of them, and this is probably the best of the X Men movies. It was kind of at a point where people were like, I don't know which direction X Men's going. Is it going to start going down? And then, they come with that, and then later on you get Days of Future Past, which was just, I love both generations of X Men, characters and stuff. And then my other honorable mention, which was literally at number 10 right before I started filming. I couldn't decide. Um, and so just at the very last second I pulled it off. But The Watchmen is my last honorable mention. I love, darker shows, darker movies, and this was such a dark movie. And really, Dr. Manhattan is the only one that has true superpowers. And it just shows, you know, what a world would be like for somebody like that. And this is as close to kind of how the real world would be. Um, I haven't watched the show that they did on HBO. At some point, I'll get around to it. But The Watchmen was a terrific, terrific movie. So let's jump in to our top 10. At number 10, and just sneaking in at the last second, Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 1. This was one of those movies where, um, James Gunn kind of proved that it's not necessarily all about just having a well known character that just leads everything and everyone just follows behind that character. He proved that you can just make a good movie and throw, little known superheroes into it. Guardians of the Galaxy out in the mainstream, really nobody knew. I mean, I would say maybe some people, if you would say the name Star Lord before Guardians of the Galaxy came out, people might say something along the lines of, "I think I've heard of them, but I don't really know them." And then after the execution of this movie was just perfect. The tone was great. The comedy was so on point. Uh, and then the story, the story really gripped your heart. Um, just just a solid movie. Um, I don't think that movie could have been done any better. Um, so we're gonna go on to number 9, and this might be lower on the list than some people would think, or a lot of people on their own lists, but it's still one of the best of all time, top 10, and that will be Spider-Man, and in particular, Spider-Man No Way Home, the newest Spider-Man. I kind of wrestled on which Spider-Man I wanted to do, Spider-Man 2 or No Way Home, but I went with No Way Home because in the theater it just I'm a big moment person, and when Tobey Maguire came back in, just the whole audience erupted, and then Garfield came in, and I just love when a movie can get an audience super invested. And there are just some movies that you really are missing out if you don't go and see them in theaters with um, with a crowd. It's just amazing, and I really, if my friend Nathan is watching this, he knows I do not like what they did with the stinger. I felt like it was a kind of a spit in the face of the fans. But the movie, terrific, terrific movie. Now, number 8, and this might be the biggest, like, didn't see it coming movie on these top 10 lists, but Blade 2. I love all the Blades. Blade Trinity was a little, parts of it were a little goofy, but still enjoyable. But Blade 1 and in particular Blade 2, um, because Blade came out right before all these comic book movies. It was really the first comic book movie to be done outside of Batman, be done really, Batman and Superman, sorry, but of the modern era, to be done really well. And then X-Men came out, and you had other movies that were kind of superhero movies like Unbreakable and stuff, and then Blade 2 came out in like '02 and just stepped it up a notch and was like, this is what comic book movies have to be. Like, if you're not, you're doing a disservice if you're not coming to the level of Blade 2. Um, you know, and people who have seen Blade 2 and know how good it is, maybe they're like, well, not every movie can be that good, but really in today's world, you should be, with the kind of money they have, you should be hiring the best writers and trying to get to that level. Blade, again, darker character, vampires. I love vampires. Who doesn't? But it's kind of a little turned away, more of a horror vampires than your Interview with the Vampires style. And Wesley Snipes might be the most perfectly cast actor for any comic book role ever. Just brilliant. And then on to 7 is Captain America Winter Soldier. Some people even have this as like their best movie. It was terrific. The first Captain America was just a so-so movie, but you've seen that it had potential to really become something. Chris Evans was, again, great cast, fantastic. But this, the second movie, bringing Bucky back, realizing, it's, his best friend, and to me, friendships in movies, books in general, are always even more impactful to me than even family most of the time. And this is what made this movie so amazing. Yeah, so definitely one of the best Marvel MCU movies of all time. Now, number six, some people might be surprised it's this high on the list, but Deadpool. And I even love Deadpool 2. I don't think it's that far off, but the original Deadpool came along at a perfect time. All these comic book movies were just peaking. We were right there at the peak, right? And people were starting to kind of get to that point where they're like, is the craze peaking out? Are some of us gonna be done? And then Deadpool came along and just, made fun of it all. Ryan Reynolds, another perfect cast. Refused to not let them make this movie. He's like, this movie was gonna get. Who leaked that trailer footage? Yeah, it was Ryan. We know it was Ryan Reynolds. But he just such a perfect job, and this movie came out at the exact right time, had the exact right tone. It was bloody, bloody gore fest, just laugh fest, and it was so true to the character of Deadpool. So I can't wait for Deadpool 3 to see, where they go. We got Wolverine coming in. It should be fantastic. And maybe just what the MCU needs to turn it back around. Because, I'm going to say I've probably really kind of fallen away from the MCU. And then we get to the top five. The top five, and number five is the one that really started the MCU, and that's the original Iron Man. The original Iron Man. I cannot believe how well they hit right out of the gate. That movie, the graphics were just amazing. Robert Downey Jr., perfect. A lot of people really didn't know much about Robert Downey Jr., but I watched a lot of his movies beforehand. Such a great actor, perfect in the role, and really just came along at the perfect time. The movie was nearly perfect. Marvel put it together, with the last scraps of their money, just like Tony did when he was in that cave with a box of scraps. Perfect movie. Number four, and maybe this is high for some people. I know it's probably too high for my best friend, but Wonder Woman is number four. And as I said earlier, I'm a big moment person, and that moment where she is in the trenches and everybody's like, there's nothing we can do. We just don't even try. Just stay down. And she jumps up out of the trench and just starts blocking all the machine gun fire and then running for the enemy. It's just one of those things. You're in the audience and you just want to stand up and yell, go for it, and there was multiple scenes like that. The end boss fight, or whatever you want to call it, wasn't the best, but the entire movie, the story, the acting, everything, couldn't really deter me off of how great Wonder Woman was. And this really proves that female superheroes can work, and they can be great. They can be some of the best movies ever made. And I feel like instead of taking what Wonder Woman did and being like, this is the blueprint for an amazing female superhero movie, we've had some other ones that just decided that they were going to go the opposite way, and didn't work out so well. But here it is, the final three, the top three, and Um, n- I I'm gonna be honest. There's a number one is was pretty easy. Number two was pretty easy, and then number three is a little bit of a gap, between those two. But again, one of the best moment scenes in cinematic history. Number three is Avengers Endgame. A lot of people will say that Infinity War was actually a better overall movie, and it's close. But this the scene where Captain America is fighting and getting his ass kicked by Thanos. Um, you know, one when he picks up the hammer to save Thor, you're just like, yeah, everyone in the theater's like, yeah. And then when he's fighting him with the shield and the hammer, and his shield is getting cut down and beat, and he just won't give up. I felt like, because I'm a big MMA fan, and I felt like I was watching an MMA fight. I'm literally like out loud, like, kick his ass, get him, Cap. And my my wife was like, don't make a scene. But he's down there, and he's like, you can tell it's almost, it seems like all hope is lost, but he's like, I'm not gonna give up. And then it's like, on your left, and just the best, just the best, you know. So that's why Endgame comes in at number three, and number two, and it is a movie that I never thought I'd see, especially another comic book movie, reach this height. Um, it had been a while since we, had a comic book movie that really nearly transcended everything. And for me, Logan did this. It it is a western that happens to have superheroes and comic book characters in it. Um, this is Hugh Jackman's probably his greatest performance, maybe in any movie ever. I love Hugh Jackman in all the movies that he's done, outside of X-Men. But this is, and Patrick Stewart, just an amazing thing. I mean, there was so much, and again, it's kind of a friendship movie, and a father-daughter movie. Kind of, almost a True Grit type thing. But this movie just reached a height that I didn't think another comic book movie would get to. And the ending of this movie was so heart wrenching, and really, that's where X-Men should have ended. Is right there. All right, now we're coming to number one, and it should be no surprise to anybody. And really, if this isn't your number one movie, I would really need to hear a reason why. I mean, you would really strongly have to sway me to even consider something else. Nothing will be number one. Nothing will ever beat this movie. I just don't see it happening. I guess never say never, but really, I don't ever see it happening. And if you are ready, of any of these movies, because I've seen them all, if you put any movie above The Dark Knight, I don't know if I can take your list seriously. But I am willing to hear you out in the comments if you do not think that The Dark Knight is the number one comic book movie of all time. Everyone's The biggest problem with most comic book movies is the villains, the bad guys. You know, it's so hard to get them to the level of the hero and make them interesting, believable, and and nobody did that like Heath Ledger. Um, Even without his death, it still would have been the best performance of any villain ever in any movie, probably. Um, and then you had Aaron Eckhart as Two-Face, putting up an amazing performance as he always does in any movie he's in. Christopher Nolan. This really, he had other hits, but this really took him to the next level. And of course, Christian Bale is one of the best actors of of our time, probably the last 20 years. Um, I can't say enough good things about Christian Bale and all the movies that he's been in. He was the only reason Thor: Love and Thunder was even worth seeing. But The Dark Knight is the best comic book movie ever made. I don't know if I could ever see anything. I was surprised to see Logan, reach up and just touch it. It was close, but that is my top 10 list. Let me know what you think is the top 10. Do you, disagree completely with my list? What would you change? Let me know in the comments. Make sure if you've made it this far and you're not subscribed, subscribe. Let me know if this is the kind of stuff that you're looking for. And I will see you in the next one.